Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm doing very, very well. Miss Andrea Horwath, leader of the official opposition in the NDP. How are you?
I'm hanging in. I'm hanging in like everybody else in these very challenging times, right?
It's been a wild last few years. We were just talking about it before you joined in live. How, probably the most turmoil that we've witnessed, experienced as like anybody, no matter what age you are. And so we all know June 2nd is right around the corner, a provincial election. And we know you're going to be running there for the NDP, but we have some questions that we want to get in and talk to you about. But I mean, just fill us in. Like, how have you been for the last couple of years?
I've been good. I've been great. I've been trying to, advocate on behalf of everyday people, trying to make sure that we're getting the information as well as the investments that we needed to get us through COVID. I have to say I was pretty concerned that the government's sitting on $5.5 billion of COVID funds that could have been used to save lives in long-term care, could have been used to make our schools safer so kids could stay in school longer. It's just the way this government rolls. Before the pandemic, they were making really big cuts, pretty bad choices. They were cutting in long-term care. They were cutting in public health. They were cutting in education, firing 10,000 teachers, and then COVID hit. So we've been through a bit of a double whammy. I'd say we've been through a double whammy over the last couple of years, with first the Ford government getting elected and canceling elections, canceling ward elections in Toronto and making all those cuts, and then we get hit with the pandemic. And now, after all of that, I think folks are really worried about what's happening globally. What's happening in Ukraine. So it's been it's been tough. It's been a tough couple of years, not for me personally. I mean, I do the job I love. I still think I bring something to the table in terms of the work I do as an elected person, but people have been through a lot. I mean, Ontarians have been through a lot. People have been through a lot worldwide.
And it feels like the pain continues. I mean, one of the biggest things we continue to hear about is the price at the gas pump. Like nobody's ever seen these type of prices before. It's affecting every single person. And you really want to know what's interesting is that if you are lucky enough to work in a job where you can work from home, you're not really feeling the pinch. There are a lot of people, especially people of color, who have to still go to work and they have to pay these gas prices to get to work, and they are out of control. So I want to talk about a bill that you and your party have proposed to regulate gas prices. Tell me about the details.
Well, Brandon, we've brought this bill 3 times now. We first brought it in. I can't even remember when we first brought it. In 2017, the Liberals were not prepared to support it, and of course the Conservatives have not supported it. So we brought it back again, especially because gas prices are in the news, as you've identified, and they're hitting some people harder than others. But what we've known for years and years is that the big oil companies are gouging Ontarians. We know, and in other provinces, gas prices are regulated, so that you have a certainty around how much you're paying at the pumps week to week, and that means that they can't jack up the prices when a long weekend's coming. Do you know what I mean? They can't jack up the prices on a whim when it's a holiday weekend, or what we see happening in many parts of Ontario, where the price is one thing in one community, and then you drive 20 kilometers down the road or 40 kilometers down the road, and it's 3 or 4 cents higher, or 3 or 4 cents lower. That's the thing that really burns people, right? Where you've just filled up and you pass a gas station a couple of kilometers down the road, and it's about a lot cheaper than what you've just paid. If we regulated the gas prices, you wouldn't have that uncertainty. And they do it already. They do it in Quebec. They do it in the maritime provinces, in a number of the states in the US. So this is about, stopping the gouging at the pumps.
So how would that affect prices right now, though? Like, do you think if that policy was in place, if that was, put into place in law, that gas prices at the pumps in Ontario would be lower?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, I think there are, international events that I talked about a minute ago that are driving the gas prices up. There's no doubt. But we have no idea, why it's $1.83, I think, on average right now. In Northern Ontario, it's at almost $2. It's $1.97. That's a huge differential. Why? We know it costs a little bit more to transport gas up north, for example, but it doesn't cost that much more. And it doesn't cost 16 cents more per liter. So there's just no transparency around how the prices are being set in the first place. So I can't say that our bill would reduce significantly how much the price is at the pump right now. What I can guarantee, though, is if our bill was in place as the price, we would know what the pricing was being based on, and it would be consistent across the regions, right? So northern region might be a little bit higher because of transportation costs, but we would have consistent pricing. If you're in Toronto, I'm from Hamilton, so Hamilton and Toronto and Niagara, all in the same region, generally speaking, would have the same price. That doesn't happen now. So it also creates the transparency. So we know what what goes into the price of gas, and it gets rid of the gouging. When the prices go down, and let's all hope that happens and that it happens sooner rather than later, it will also make sure that there's no funny business around the prices going down, right? And we always see that. Oh, the price of gas is at this much a barrel, and so our prices are going up. And then the next thing you know, the price per barrel goes down, but the prices of gas that we're paying at the pumps doesn't follow suit. So there's a lot of pieces around the accountability of gas pricing, and people deserve that. We don't want to be putting, this money into the pockets of these big oil companies. We want to make sure the little guy is able to afford to put gas in the truck to go to work.
Well, the little guy, the little gal, everybody's feeling the pinch. Everybody's feeling the pinch. And a lot of people don't know this, but gas prices are set to increase again tonight into tomorrow. Plus, come April 1st, we're going to see gas prices increase again because the federal portion of the carbon tax, that's set to increase. We've been hearing from some other provincial leaders across this country that are calling on Justin Trudeau's government to say, hey, maybe put a pause on that increase right now because gas prices are already sky high. Do you agree with that? Do you think Justin Trudeau, and the federal government should say, hey, let's put a pause, a break on the increase in the carbon tax on gas prices because they're already so high?
Well, let's face it, the price of everything is out of control, right? I mean, the cost of everything is just out of control. And when you say this, this is really a pinch on people, we're watching as housing becomes less affordable. People can't afford to pay the rent anymore because we got rid of rent controls. Doug Ford got rid of rent controls in Ontario. People can't afford the price of groceries anymore. So that anything that can be done to try to address the cost of everyday living for folks needs to be looked at. I do worry though, because here in Ontario, I know that the gas tax, that the Ontario portion of the gas tax pays for our healthcare system. And it pays for our education system. And so we have to be very careful about, especially now, when kids are struggling to get back into classrooms where they can catch up on what they missed, where we were backlogged on surgeries, 21 million surgeries and procedures like MRIs and things like that are backlogged. So we have to be careful. That's why we want to regulate the gas, because we'd rather the break in prices come from the big oil companies as opposed to being taken out of our healthcare and education system.
Okay, let's move on to another topic that everybody's talking about, and that's the fact that Ontario's top doc, Dr. Karen Moore, came out saying today that as of March 21st, almost all mask mandates in this province will be gone, so people can walk around without a mask. Still in some settings, it will be required, like on public transit. Doug Ford was asked if there was any political pressure put on Dr. Moore to make that decision, because the timing is interesting. People know I keep it real, but there is an election just a few months away, so the timing does seem a little interesting. What are your thoughts on this? Do you agree with the move to end most of these mask mandates, or did you want to still see them in place?
Well, Brendan, I think it's important to acknowledge that people are exhausted. I mean, people are tired. It's been a weary couple of years. Folks just want to get back to normal. And I have a lot of sympathy for that because I'm a human being as well, right? And I love seeing people's smiling faces. And look, I'm going to keep it real too. I'm a politician. My response matters when we're coming up to an election. I'm really only joking now there, but I mean, really, it's something that we have to be very thoughtful about. I mean, you don't fight through the entire bout and then give up in the last round. You don't do that, right? You throw in the towel, at the end of the fight. And so I worry about that. And a lot of the scientists and experts are saying, once we get back from March break, just give it an extra 2 weeks, and then we can feel confident. When it's a matter of 2 weeks after 2 long years, are we taking a risk that we're going to regret? And when I listen to some of the experts say, reflect exactly those kinds of concerns, then I worry. And that's why I asked the question today: what exactly is the Premier basing that decision on? Is it political pressure, or is it based on science? And I didn't get an answer. And you know what? I think it makes
But
people.
where do you personally stand on this? Like,
I
personally,
personally stand on the side of science, Brendan, and I have all the way along. The experts have to be listened to. They're who are doing the work to follow what's happening with the virus and to provide us their best advice. And so when the government makes these decisions, the very least they should be doing is showing us what they're basing those decisions on. What is it that they're basing those decisions on? And when you have sick kids and you have a number of experts from the science table and other places saying that they're worried, that we're jumping the gun a little bit, that if we just hold on for another couple of weeks, we'll be safer in terms of our likelihood of being able to keep the masks off and never go backwards again. I listen to the science experts. I think that's.
So if you were in power, if you were Premier, would
Yeah.
you listen to what the head of Sick Kids has said and said, hey, we want to see mask mandates continue for a few more weeks, or would you follow Dr. Moore's advice and end it on March 21st?
Well, I don't know what Dr. Moore is basing his recommendation on, considering many of his colleagues are saying quite the opposite. And that's troubling. Is he the one that's caving to political pressure from the Premier of the province? That's another thing that we've never been able to determine. Is Doug Ford says, I base my decisions on the doctor's advice, whether it's this medical officer or the previous one. And then the next thing the medical officers of health is saying, oh, well, we agree with what the government's decision is. So which one is it? Is Doug Ford making the decision, or is the Chief Medical Officer of Health making the decision? Which creates confusion, which creates distrust and confusion. And so that's been something that's plagued us throughout the pandemic. If I were the Premier all the way through, I would do a couple of things. I would have listened to the science from day one. I wouldn't take risks. And I would make sure that I'm investing every single dollar necessary to keep our kids in school longer, and to actually put the iron ring around long-term care like the government was supposed to do. It's nothing to brag about that we went into a third wave because the Premier made the wrong decision. There's nothing to brag about that that we saw over 4,400 precious lives lost in long-term care because Doug Ford didn't want to spend the money to hire more PSWs. Quebec spent the money. BC spent the money. How do you, bragging rights that you saved $5.5 billion while those lives were lost? Those are not the kinds of priorities I would have put in place. There's one other thing, and I don't want to belabor the point. We really didn't have clear communications all the way through. There was always mixed messages. The Premier seemed to be saying one thing one day and something else the next day. Rarely did we get a clear explanation of how and why decisions were being made. And I think that created not only confusion, but I think it created, distrust. And it created, I think, some of the friction that we have. Look, we've done all the heavy lifting. We distanced, we wore the masks, we got our vaccinations, we showed our certificates. There's only a very small amount of people that didn't do those things, that chose not to. They're the happiest right now. And if Doug Ford is caving to them for political reasons, then that's pretty shameful. That's pretty shameful.
Andrea, I know that we are literally about out of time, but I have to ask you, the election is 2 months away. Everybody wants to know, what can they expect from the NDP?
Well, we've got a great team of MPPs. As you know, we have 40 MPPs elected into the legislature. And so I think people are tired of the roller coaster with Doug Ford, frankly. I think the Ford government it's just been a roller coaster, and folks are looking to get off the roller coaster, as am I, frankly. And we are the best team to be able to achieve that. We've got 40 MPPs. We need 20 odd more seats to be able to form a government, a majority government, less to form a minority government. The other option, Mr. Del Duca's team is going in with 5 MPPs. So he would have to elect like 58 or something to be able to form a
Are you
government.
worried about the Liberals, though?
No, not so much. I mean, when I see the strength of our team, when I see the areas of the province that we represent, urban, rural, big cities, small towns, we have people from every ethnocultural and faith background that are on our caucus. 50% women, twice running. The first Black caucus ever in the province of Ontario. We really do actually reflect our province, and we have a very strong team. And very strong MPPs, and so I'm excited. I keep saying we're the team with the steam. We're the team with the steam to derail the current government and bring Ontario a government that really does prioritize what everyday folks need to build a great life here.
Alrighty. Andrea Horwath, leader of the official opposition and the NDP, thank you for joining me. Listen, once we get a little bit closer to the election, I am going to invite all the leaders onto the show. We're going to have a sit down one-on-one, and we want to get deep into the issues. We're going to allow people to ask questions. Promise me you're going to come back for that.
I absolutely will, and people can go to OntarioNDP.ca. We've already got a couple of planks of our platforms out on housing, on climate, and on seniors care, home care, and long-term care. So we're already out of the gate. We have been for a while.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for your time. Stay safe, stay blessed, and we will chat soon.
You do the same, Brandon. Thanks so much.
Alrighty. Take care.
You too.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us on the special live edition of the Brady Gonez Show with NDP leader and the official leader of the official opposition, Andrea Horwath. We got so much for you over the next couple of months, guys. Keep it locked to this channel. This is the news you can use. Take care, everybody.